Hi again. I realized I forgot to introduce myself before, so I'm Paul. I'm an SRE, so I'm not a programmer, and I work for a company called 37signals, which maybe you've heard of. And today I'm going to present you our cloud exit. Has anyone heard about our adventure of leaving the cloud over the past couple of years? Or yeah, some of you. Okay. Um, So yeah, we've been cloud-free since 23. There's a big asterisk to that, which is that we actually closed our AWS account, I think, in the beginning of October. And the reason for that is that we had previous commitments to S3. So we had 4.2 billion objects in our S3 buckets, and we had to move them. That was also 4.6 petabytes. So just moving the files took a bit more than a month, I think. And we closed the account in the beginning of October during our last meetup. So all of the apps have been running out of the cloud since 2023, and it took us around 6 months to migrate, but technically we closed the account last month. So what's 37signals to begin with? We are a 65 people company spread around the world. We are pretty big on remote work and have been pretty big on remote work for the better part of 20 years now. We make two products primarily, which you might have heard of. The first one is Basecamp. It's an all-in-one project management software. It's available on basecamp.com. And the second one is Hey. It's available on hey.com, and it's a mail service similar to Gmail, but not similar to Gmail at all. And then we have a bunch of other products. One of them is the Once lineup. So the Once lineup was our attempt at selling software licenses in 2023. So not selling software as SaaS, but selling it as a one-time purchase that you can run on your own infrastructure. We have two products in that lineup. The first one is called Campfire, and it's a chat tool. And the second one is called Writebook, and it's a book publishing tool. And at the moment, those two softwares are free and open source as well. So you might want to check it out because we didn't actually sell that many of them. So we figured we might as well make them free and open source. And the other icons that you see on the right is so if you ask some people at the company, you will hear them call it the Heritage Suite, and other people will call it the Legacy apps. So those are apps that are still available today for the customers who pay for it, but you cannot sign up to anymore. We have a policy that we call Until the End of the Internet, where we will keep the lights on as long as people are paying for our products, but you cannot sign up for them anymore. And the good thing about that, the really good thing in the context of a migration, is that it gives us a really great criticality ladder when we move apps. So we have very small apps with very low usage that we can use as guinea pigs for every experience that we want. So they were the first one migrated to the cloud, and then they were the first ones migrated back from the cloud. You might also know 37signals because it's the company that created Ruby on Rails, and we still have a fair amount of people in-house that work on Rails and on extracting a bunch of stuff that we do for ourselves into the framework. So yeah. For the ops team specifically, which I'm a part of, we are 11 people across the world. We have 3 people in the Americas, so one person in Canada, one person in the US, and one person in Brazil. 5 people in Europe, in Italy, Germany, Spain, the UK, and France. And 3 people in the APAC region, so in the Philippines, Singapore, and in Japan. I'll get back to that a bit later, but having people around the world for an ops team is pretty sweet. So, why leave the cloud? Why did we make that decision to leave what was supposed to be the world of simplicity and rationalization that is the cloud? First thing is it's expensive. I think if any of you ever worked in the cloud environment, you must at some point have been hit with a bill that was much higher than you anticipated, where you felt like you were overpaying, over-provisioning, and for us, it was a reality. The second is that it didn't scale down the human cost of operations. It didn't make the ops team's life easier, and the size of the team didn't change either. So one of the promises was that we could eventually downsize the number of people on the ops team. This didn't happen for us. One of the reasons is that we want to keep people with the skill set to debug the infrastructure in-house. But actually the team grew, and the complexity around the tools, so when you start getting into the AWS IAM and using Kubernetes and stuff like that, the complexity grew too. And some people I mean, everyone on the team was kind of bothered with that. The third reason is that we've always been running in our DCs anyway. So Basecamp has never run in the cloud. The only application that was born in the cloud at 37signals is Hey. So it was created for the cloud and it was cloud native from day one. But all of the other apps that we had in the cloud, so we had maybe most of the legacy suite, they were migrated to the cloud in efforts that took months and that were sometimes brutal because we had outages and stuff like that. But actually some of the apps had always run from our DCs. The data stores run from our DCs. So we had the expertise. Also, our load is somewhat stable. We are not a hyperscaler. Our growth is predictable and pretty linear, which is good for business. But we don't need auto-scaling or stuff like that. Basically, except when we launch a new product, and I'll get right to it at the end of this talk, but we never really need to double our capacity for an app or something like that. It just doesn't happen. So predicting what kind of load we were going to get and even buying hardware made sense for us because we knew exactly how much we were going to need in the next 5-6 years. We seek adventure. So I'm quoting DHH on that, which maybe you know likes to make strong points on the internet. So yeah, we seek adventure. We want jobs that push the envelope. We want to take a chance and see if we can own one more layer of the stack, see if we can actually pull it out to run the stack ourselves from Metal to the app. And yeah, it's also, we seek adventure is also really good publicity. This meetup being an example of that, where getting out of the cloud got us a lot of publicity, a lot of marketing talk, and that's always good for business as well. One other reason is that, as we've seen a couple weeks back, US East 1 is a single point of failure for half of the internet. Really, no one should feel comfortable with that. The internet is a great piece of software, a great design to begin with, and the fact that it has become so centralized should make us uncomfortable. And the fact that we are also delegating that much responsibility to AWS or GCP or any of the cloud providers should make us itchy. And yeah, I think we should think about it and consider that taking away that skill set as a company is something that is not completely random and that can bite us back. Of course, no one ever gets fired for opening an AWS account, and you can perfectly tell your customers that you can't do anything about your own product because AWS is down. That works, it has, but still, it's not great. And the last, yeah, did I say it's expensive? For us in 2022, that was $3.2 million, and we get some pretty good deals. We had some pretty massive discounts on our cloud usage. Half of that budget was spent on S3, basically. And we had someone monthly run the numbers, like run the numbers of where are we spending? Are we spending more than last month? Are we spending, are we over provisioning? Do we have too much capacity? Do we have stuff that runs for too long? So we had the budget on the tightest leash possible, and it was still massively expensive. So on October 19th, 2022, two things happened. The first one is that DHH wrote this article that we're leaving the cloud. And the second one is I had my final interview for getting into 37signals. So 1 hour before I hopped into the meeting and met my now coworkers, he dropped that bomb. I had done the technical tests and it was about Kubernetes. It was about writing cloud native apps and stuff like that. And 1 hour before the interview, this happens. So we had an interesting conversation. But yeah, I joined right when this effort of leaving the cloud started to materialize into actual projects, actual work from the ops team. Right, so I said we have DCs. Maybe those questions rose in your mind. Those are the questions that we often get. So the first one is actually a selling point of the cloud. They will tell you, you shouldn't build your own power plant. You should buy electricity from someone who runs electricity production at scale, and that can sell it to you for super cheap. And the two other ones are in the same vein. Like how can you run your own DC? Well, for a small size company of 60 persons like ours, a DC looks like this. So that was all of the hardware that we bought for our cloud exit, and that's our cabinets. We have 2 primary DCs in the US, and we have 4 cabinets like this in each of them that we rent from a company called Deft, who itself rents space in data centers. And I think maybe 1 or 2 people on our team have actually physically been inside the DCs. I've never been there, but we have remote hands, so we have people 24/7 that we can call or ticket so that they can plug something in, unplug something in, swap a memory stick, swap a drive if it fails, stuff like that. So this is really remote for us, but we do have those cabinets. They also look like this, logically. So this is a logical representation of what I just showed you. And we have 48 units of height times 4 in each of our data centers. That's what it is. We run our networking gear, we run our F5 load balancers, we run our databases, and we run our app machines from there. Everything runs from there now. And of course, we have really fast links between the data centers, so you can do the round trip in 15 milliseconds between the Chicago and the Ashburn data centers, which is kind of important. All right, that's the network topology. Nothing super interesting. It's just to say that you can build something state-of-the-art with not that much hardware, and it's not that hard to configure either. Right, so we set out to leave the cloud. How to do it was the next question. And the first thing we did is we started looking into running Kubernetes on-prem, because we'd been having a good experience with Kubernetes on AWS. It worked. We had a couple apps that were ready to deploy that way. It was working. But then when you start thinking about running a high traffic application on Kubernetes, on your own hardware, in your own DC, you start thinking about getting commercial support to have the software support that you need to run it. And of course, it happened that we got a quote from those companies that make it a job to help you run Kubernetes on your on-prem hardware, and David didn't really like the quote. And he decided, you know what, we have apps that are perfectly fine running as Docker containers. We know how to run Docker containers. We know how to slice up our big servers into small virtual machines. Why not just write something that is basically a Docker run wrapper in Ruby? And I know that sounds like the worst idea in the world, but Kemal was born at that moment. And as skeptic as we were at first, it works. And today, all of our apps use it. And Kemal is, I don't know if you've seen it. I think it's bundled in Rails now. It's the default deployment tool for Rails. But it's just a declarative config for Docker run, basically. And it's an imperative tool, which is everything the industry doesn't want you to do right now. You have to do something simpler. You have to have reconciliation loops, stuff like that. We don't. It just fits better with the way we work. It fits better with the way programmers want to do deploys from their own machines. So right now it works. And when we started, we had the legacy apps migrated to Kemal, and then we had them out of the cloud and back onto our machines. And then we migrated all of our apps, which means that today all of the apps run Kemal. Most of them version 2. We still have a couple that run on version 1, which is a pain in the ass, but we'll get to that at some point. So yeah, our stack is basically Deft for the data centers, Dell for the servers. Then we use KVM to slice up the machines, really simple, create virtual machines that are actually pretty small. Then we use Sync, which is the open source community edition of Chef. And then we have Kemal to deploy containers. Simple. One container per virtual machine, and many virtual machines per KVM host, and then all of that in the data center. And it sounds too simple to be true, but it actually works pretty well too. And it reduced complexity, because now you know that you can just log into any machine. You have one running container, you have traffic too, but one app container and you can debug. It makes it pretty easy to understand, even for programmers, even for support. It's easy. So then the question became, how do we get traffic into DC? And yeah, we still use two third-party tools. The first one is Cloudflare, which I think everyone's familiar with. We use them, we leverage the edge cache a lot. We also leverage the application firewall to block as much traffic as we can at the edge. And the second one is the F5 load balancers, which are physical load balancers that you get into your DC. And you configure them to serve the load. I'll show a diagram just right after. Or right now is good too. So that looks like this. The customers get into Cloudflare. Cloudflare gets into our F5s. Our F5s have pools of machines that they can send traffic to. And those machines run containers in a Camel app. Very simple. Now, one other single point of failure of the internet that we saw a couple of weeks back with Cloudflare. I think you guys didn't miss that. So we made this whole system so we'd be comfortable with it. So turning off Cloudflare is a 3-minute operation for us. So if there was a problem, we could disable it. Last time we weren't hit with the issue because it wasn't a product that we don't use. So we weren't hit at all by the outage that they had. But we could disable it very quickly if we wanted to, which was the whole point of this. Right. What about the rest of the world? So that's a question that most of our users don't have, but David travels a lot. And David wants Hey to feel as snappy when he's in Los Angeles, when he's in Chicago, and when he's in Europe. So we started thinking about getting our content closer to the edge, closer to our users. Same way you could get with the cloud. Basically, you'd have different regions and you'd have read replicas in different regions. So we started thinking about that. And we created the first of our outposts. That's what we call them. And it's in Amsterdam. And it looks like this. So same as before, we have Cloudflare doing some geo-load balancing first. So based on where you are in the world, Cloudflare is going to decide whether it routes your traffic to Amsterdam or to the BGP Anycast IPs that we have, where the network will make the decision of getting you either to Ashburn or Chicago, depending on not geography, but network topology. It will select the fastest network and it will get you to one of our 3 DCs. Of course, you need to have a primary writer. So in this case, it's Chicago. And so the apps will know to balance your writes and to send them to the writer. But otherwise, you read from the closest DC that's closest to you. So it makes it very quick. It makes the app very quick when you use it. And basically, it's what happens in the cloud as well. You just have to build all of that. So those are, some of it is application concern, and some of it is at the F5 level, where we make decisions. And we do have a read after write policy. So when you write something, you will be reading from the primary writer. Whatever happens, you'll be reading from there. So you get consistent reads for 1 second, until 1 second is how long it takes to make sure that all the replicas are in sync with the primary. So yeah, we built that. We are pretty happy at the moment with how it works. Again, we can disable Cloudflare, run in degraded mode where you only go to the BGP. But if we have it, it's nice. And we might deploy more outposts in the future. We'll see. Maybe we are working on that right now. Right, and so that was an overview of how we do things. Now for how we organize as a team. We started deploying Prometheus and OpenTelemetry at the same time we moved out of the cloud. So we used to have Nagios, which was long overdue a refresh. And yeah, now we have a full stack of OpenTelemetry monitoring, so for the metrics, for logs, and we are also playing with tracing at the moment. So we have eyes on the production and other environments. We also have a 30 seconds failover setup, which is something that the cloud gets you to. And we are rolling it out to all of our apps. But basically, we can guarantee that we can do a failover from the primary DC to the replica in 30 seconds. And 30 seconds is not downtime. It's just writes and availability in the worst of the cases. We've tested it as low as 15 seconds, and it works. Okay. And one of the good things that I talked about having a team that's distributed is that you can have follow the sun on call. So you always have someone who is awake and in front of their computer during the work week, which means when you're on call, like I'm going to be next week, I don't have to worry about getting woken up at night because Victor and Aaron and Alex are going to be covering for me while I sleep, which is really, really sweet. So that's how we organize the team. And the bottom line of this change, so I actually wanted to switch the order of the slides, so we'll do it this way. So first of all, financially, it made sense. We bought the hardware. We're going to be amortizing it over 5 years, using it for 6 or 7 years, we'll see. So David did the math. I didn't check the math, but I think it works out. And in terms of like operational complexity, in terms of uptime, because that's the bottom line of the ops team, we also have pretty good availability. 2 nines is decent. It's where we want to be. And that was the year when we moved everything, so we did it pretty okay. And I think that's it. There's one last thing that I wanted to say. We just released a couple hours ago a new product called Fizzy, and you can check it out. It's on Fizzy, FIZZY.do, D-O. And the code is open source, and we shared the whole Git history for you to see how we developed the product. So you can self-host it. It's a Kanban tool, and it's pretty cool. Thank you.